Hello and welcome to Occupied Thoughts, a podcast brought to you by the Foundation for Middle East Peace. I'm Rania Batrice, Palestinian non-resident fellow at FMEP. Today is August 7th, 2024, and I'm so thrilled to be here with Hani Almadhoun. Hani is the director of Philanthropy at UNRWA USA. He's also from Gaza, where most of his family still lives. Months ago, Hani and his family founded a soup kitchen, or several soup kitchens actually, to help feed people in Gaza. So we're going to talk about that work and many other things. But first, I just have to say thank you so much for joining us today and for just taking some time to visit with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you.
I'm going to just jump right in. And I first want to talk about your family and being Palestinian, and more specifically being Palestinian and from Gaza. But quickly before we dive into that side, and I know I always say it's all personal, right? It's all about our family, it's all about our work. But I do want to quickly talk about UNRWA, what it is, why it's important, and the work you do for them. So can you just share a little bit on that front?
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me, Rania. It's a pleasure to be in front of an audience that's informed, sophisticated, and really invested in this on the emotional level, in the financial level, and in the advocacy and the political front. So thank you for your work on behalf of this organization and the many wonderful things that you do with your colleagues and on your own. So it's when you asked, I was like, yes, I definitely want to come out here. So, UNRWA is the largest humanitarian actor inside Gaza right now. 60% of the aid that goes into Gaza is brought in by UNRWA. And what makes this challenging is the attacks and misinformation that's been waged against UNRWA, a humanitarian agency that's been around since 1948. This is not an organization that there is no flavor of the month situation. This is what UNRWA does. The Palestine refugees in the 5 field areas support in health, education, relief, social programming, and job creation. So this is a unique organization that's where 99% of the staff are Palestine refugees themselves. So as you know, UNHCR works with all refugees under the sun, and they do a good job there. UNRWA works with the Palestine refugees because UNRWA predates UNHCR by perhaps 2 months. So there is distinctions there. And UNRWA lost 200 staff in Gaza, the largest human toll in the United Nations history, as those folks work for the UN and support their Palestinian siblings. And as you know, the mission of UNRWA has been expanded into the provision of fuel for hospitals and bakeries, in addition to sheltering more than 1 million people inside the different UNRWA's facilities, providing healthcare. 8 of the 22 healthy clinics are operating in Gaza right now. 0 schools are being able to offer education, though UNRWA has announced plans to go back slowly in different phases to learning for 600,000 Palestinian refugees who have lost a year of their lives. So in addition to this, most of UNRWA's work is impacted by the number of trucks that are allowed into Gaza, but there is work that happens from inside Gaza that does not need the trucks. So remember, mental health counseling is a big component of what does, sewage treatment, water delivery, all that stuff. Obviously, if we don't have fuel, it doesn't matter whatever we do because we cannot deliver any of that. So it is a overwhelming situation, as a lot of people know. In addition to this, and remember, UNRWA USA is an independent organization of UNRWA. It's an American charity that builds awareness and raises money on behalf of UNRWA here in the United States.
And I really appreciate you spelling it out so clearly there, because I think I found, obviously, I'm very familiar with the organization and the work that's done and that you do and they all do, but I find so many people in this country, in the US, still don't know what UNRWA is. And when they learn, they understand the importance of it. And like you said, it's not like it just popped up yesterday. It's been around for decades and decades. So thank you for everything that you're doing and for just sharing that important work. And I hope people will check out UNRWA and UNRWA USA and learn more. I am going to just kind of jump into the conversation around the work you've been helping your family do and your family's been doing in Gaza. It's so important. But let's just start. Where was your family based before the invasion? And what is anything you'd like to share about your experience and their experience since the beginning of this genocide?
Great. I will answer that. I just want to mention that if people can grab their phone now and go Google donate to UNRWA or UNRWA USA, the first thing they will see is an Israeli government-sponsored website that spreads misinformation. You may be sophisticated enough not to believe this garbage, but that robs people the opportunity to support the Palestine refugees. Anybody, just grab your phone and you will see this Israeli government. No other entity is allowed to infringe in the copyrights of another company, and that's been allowed by Google. We're pushing back, but the first official response, it was not helpful, and people are surprised these ads are being allowed to run. So just this is to give you a flavor. And remember, it's not the first time to be attacked. Remember, the last administration defunded the organization. So whatever allegations that are being made and dealt with and investigated by UNRWA, that's happening. As far as the soup kitchen with my family, around late December, early January, I saw a video of my sister baking bread substance with animal feed. And that video really broke me. In a way, I've been hearing about the famine, but I didn't, until I saw it, I didn't believe it. And my family is there. So my family is, remember, we're Palestine refugees. That means our grandparents were evacuated, ethnically cleansed from our town, which is Al-Majd al-Asqalan. Now they call it in Hebrew Ashkelon. It's the next big city to Gaza. And a lot of the folks left there and they were told, hey, you're going to come back. So my grandfather actually left the chicken in the oven, hoping that he's going to come back the next day to bring it. And we buried him 3 years ago, and he has never been allowed to go back to see his old place. So remember, the trauma is real. This is why a lot of our family members decided to stay in the north, and they paid dearly for this decision early on. So the family decided to hunker down in the north and not listen to the evacuation orders. We have some nephews who listened and they went to the south. The ones who remained in the north got genocided, my personal term, and the people who went to the south also got murdered and killed. So both sides, there is really no safe place. So my parents, my siblings are remained in North Gaza, and that's where the famine that you hear about that started sometimes around February, and what got better slightly in late March, April, and then in May it went back to the famine again. This is man-made. This is because not enough aid is being allowed to go to the north. A chaos created by whatever system the Israeli army did. I gave you a couple of examples. The warehouses of UNRWA are bombed. So where are you going to store the aid to deliver it in an orderly fashion? That's not happening anymore. UNRWA was not guaranteed safety in the operation, and other UN agencies, World Food Program. So even 2 weeks ago, a convoy by UNRWA was attacked by the Israeli army, despite knowing that this is an UNRWA convoy. And then three, the police, who would usually protect these things, have been threatened and bombed, and so many of them were killed, and there is no promise for safety. Everybody knows this. That's create chaos. That means a truck shows up, people grab, and you don't know who's grabbing the aid. My own brother passed by. There is a truck that stopped. It had flour. He grabbed 8 bags of flour, right? He just helped out the family and gave him away. But think about an elderly person, a child. How are they going to get this meal if this chaos is sponsored by the regime that's attacking Gaza right now? So that's sort of the situation is. We've lost our brother Majid in North Gaza on Black Friday last year. Today is actually his birthday. He would have been 42. He's a year younger than me. And we're celebrating his life by doing extra service projects with our family, giving kids treats or stuff like that, just to honor his memory and make him it's difficult, but he's not, we've lost so many family members, up to 150 family members of ours. There is nothing closer than your parents or your siblings. And this is my buddy. So that's where the situation. Also, you've seen my brother Mahmoud being paraded almost naked by the Israeli army to accuse him of Hamas, him and 100 other Palestinian men, complete civilians, my neighbors, I know. So the IDF released this video and they said these are Hamas fighters.
Yeah.
None of them is ever did anything. And my brother is like the guy who calls a cab if he has to go 2 blocks over. So it's not. So because we called him out, and thanks goodness I recognized my brother, and NPR and CNN. In fact, ABC called the Tel Aviv correspondent, talked to me, and then he raised questions there. And within 20 hours, most of these men were released again without their shoes, sent halfway and told them to go back. There was verbal abuses, physical restraints, and all that. But at the end, this kept happening. And now the family
Yeah.
is starved. So we pivoted to doing something with the community for the community.
And I feel like we're 10 months in and I hear you telling these stories, and of course I remember when it happened, and then I can't help but think about the ridiculous narrative, the most moral army in the world and all of that crap. Sorry, but um and it's very easy, I think, to sit in this country and hear those stories and see, yes, they got released, and then immediately forget, which of course it's intentional, right? We've been dehumanized as a people for so long, but forget that the people that we're talking about are somebody's brother, father, grandfather, son, cousin, all of these things. They're real people that are loved by other people. And just, yeah, there are no words. So I'm sorry. It's very, very difficult, and obviously even more so for you. But I do want to talk about, we hear the saying, turning pain into power. And I don't think that there's anyone I can think of more who's done that more than you and your family. So you'd call it the Gaza Soup Kitchen. Of course, it's more than one, but I'd love to hear just a little bit about this project. Where is it located? How does it work? How did it start? We kind of told us how it starts, but who do you serve, and how are you able to do that?
Thank you. I'm a member of the Palestinian community and our allies. We are hardly unique. There is a lot of many of Palestinian Americans who are doing similar projects and helping their own communities and neighborhoods. So I want to just acknowledge that. From the get-go, the biggest challenges for us were many. There is no shortage of challenges, right? So the first one is, how the heck do you talk to your family when the phone lines and telecommunications are brought down? How do you get a picture out? Worse, how do you get money to them? There is no banks and ATMs. This is basically in the middle of a sea. You have to send somebody a wire transfer. So that's sort of the things we have to work out, where we leaned a lot in trust. So the trust we've had in the community here of supporters, but also trust we've had there, where we tell people, hey, give them $1,000. I'll give it to you 2 days when we figure out how. And that's how essentially started. The first meal we cooked was actually financed by the money that we recovered from my dead brother. So he had some money on him before he was killed. So we financed the first meal, which provided meals for 120 families. So, and then we thought that's it. We cooked, we spent the money, and then we go back. And my brother Mahmoud, who was arrested again and humiliated by the IDF for no reason, he's just a Palestinian man, and and then we go and cook, and then kids show up to the house and saying, hey, can you cook today? And we weren't planning on this. So the first really idea came from a Palestinian man in Michigan. He leads a school there. He said, Hani, here is $3,000, and I'd like you to think about doing something in North. How can we do this? So remember, so aid is not allowed in. There is no rice and flour. They've eaten all the pasta in North Gaza. There nothing remains there. And for the first 55 days, nothing was allowed into Gaza. Then for the first 70 or 80 days, maybe they started seeing some food aid going into Gaza. So what we did is, since Beit Lahia is a farming community, we said, hey, and this is largely my brother, Chef Mahmoud, he started going to local farms at a great risk for his own life. In fact, the zucchini picker, 2 of them were killed a week into the operation. So what they've learned is, the first time they went, he found some potatoes So they bought whatever, they bought 800 kilos. That's about what, 1,700 pounds of potatoes. And he said, I'm going to save it and start making tomato paste. And, because potatoes are starchy, and maybe some carrots. Then he started cooking meals like that. Soup. There is no pasta, rice, bread, none of
Yeah.
that. So the next day is we started dealing with the zucchinis, overgrown zucchinis, because they should have been picked 2 months prior. So the zucchini
Mm.
was supposed to be like a little one, then it ended up being like 3 pounds or 4 pounds zucchini. Nobody's gonna make stuffed mahshi with them, so we cooked those. And then when rain started falling, we went to foraging. So we started doing khubeza, common mallow, a lot of those herbs, the traditional dishes. So that kept us for a month going. People eventually got sick of the same dish. And then we said like, hey, and people would show up really. And here's the thing, Ronnie, when the kitchen in the first day, it made local news. Telegram was like, hey, here's a soup kitchen. I was like, really? This is like a glorified family kitchen. And we're like, and it's sad. But then,
Yeah.
and what helped us is also we got a talented photographer. This guy is Haq Daour, used to be frying falafels. That's his job. He picked a camera and started taking this breathtaking photos. I was like, crap, this is just amazing pictures, beautiful food. And then that generated some interest because people share the content, combined with the storytellers, the credibility we've generated, and the love and support from my colleagues at UNRWA USA, who are like, yes, we're helping hundreds of thousands of Palestine refugees, but if Hani cannot get food to his family, we want to support him to do this for their family and their neighbors. So that's how it came together.
It's so amazing and really incredible. And like you said, I mean, every single step of this is a risk of safety to your family too. Every step of carrying this out. So it's not just a matter of the challenge of getting the supplies in, getting vegetables, getting those things in. It's also just the literal risk of safety, which of course everybody is suffering right now. It just existing is a risk, but it's really incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I do want to just turn to the U.S. for a moment, and you've been interviewed about it, but you were, of course, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's guest when Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke to Congress a few weeks ago. I feel like even when I just say it, it elicits anger in my heart and in my mind. But I would love to just hear from you why you decided to go. What was your experience? What was it like that day for you?
Yeah, so the congresswoman is a friend, obviously. I'm not involved in any campaigns or anything like that. She's a dear friend
Of
and a
course.
leader, and she's been good. She will check in on me every now and then, connects with her community, and represent Detroit and make a lot of people proud. So she's reached out and she said, hey, I'm going to go to this speech and I'd like you to be my guest because I want the Palestinian voices, the victims of the Palestinian side are represented, because there's going to be families, and rightfully so, from the hostage side. And I do want to be like, hey, we want to be there in the room, but I need somebody with a strong stomach where it's going to be a little bit difficult, weird. You're going to be harassed and things like that. So I've actually suggested my good friend Layla Al-Haddad, who's a Palestinian from Gaza, who did the Gaza cookbook. And I said, because she's unbossed, she could do whatever she want to. But then I realized she was in Jordan, so we couldn't go there. I said, okay, I'll go. And I knew I could do it because, it's, so I went with her. She was very gracious. We talked, he called up about the family. Then she warned me, like, you're going to be surrounded by people like that. And then I go, and then the guy next to me is a well-to-do millionaire insurance guy from Cleveland, the guy over there from Massachusetts. They all flew in private jets, and they're coming. And I had the kafia in my pocket, and I had this. And, I just wanted to be respectful. I'm not going to protest or anything. I'm just going to be there. This is the US. I'm not hiding. This is my country. I pay taxes here. In fact, I'm like in
Mm-hmm.
this place. So I went there and I caught up with the people next door to me. Some of them commented about the kafia. but they were also confused. Like, what the heck is this guy doing? Like, he doesn't look like a protester. But there was a lot of disgust in that because it felt really like I stepped in a different planet. Like,
Mm,
these folks, are they like, have they been living among us? Like, they have so much power, a lot of those people, because we know how the government operates, but either they're not aware of their power and impact, or they just live in a different reality. And I couldn't
yeah,
decide which one it is. In fact, it was very strange when a lot of people were clapping and standing and all that. I felt like this is not my world. This is where I live. And that's why it's good for everybody to leave the bubble every now and then and just, and it wasn't easy. Like, at some time, like, this guy made a claim that no civilians were harmed. In fact, in Rafah especially. In fact, he started talking at 2 p.m. 2:20, my friend Abu Adnan al-Kahlout was killed on a drone. 2:20 p.m., same day. And then I got the picture and the video of his dead body. He was standing on a hill because he wanted to catch the internet, and he loved to comment on our food and every day. So that
mhm,
was like, I was even made me more sick. You know how your stomach turns. And like,
yeah,
I handled the pressure. I had my kafia there. There's a lot of people who are like, feel they're on the right side of history. I know where I stand. I know I'm a proud Palestinian, and whatever happens, we're gonna be there. This is the land. We don't have plan B. This is Palestine, Gaza. This is the last stand for the Palestinians. We already lost Ashkelon and Asqalan, and now, like, what, our little neighborhood is too much. So we did that, and then I spoke to some media afterwards, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I was in the room. I wish people will see my reality, which is different. And a lot of those
yeah,
folks claim the Pallywood, and they think, oh, these gorgeous kids in the soup kitchen are not real. They were in Turkey. It's strange. Like, I'm like, I have full control. Like, this is our kitchen. This is my brother. The photographer is my friend. There is no Photoshop, and somehow
yeah,
people make up stories. So I try to answer that as
yeah,
much as I can, and also continue active and work with the donors at UNRWA USA to tell stories and raise funds, because UNRWA is under attack. They're being defunded by the
yeah,
US. And at the end of the day, you know, this work, we have to do it, and we have to show up, and we have to be the best version of ourselves every day, when we're also being, you know, it hit me today that the bloodline of my brother is being eliminated. Like, he didn't deserve that. He's a full-time civilian, you know? He's a good guy,
mhm,
and they killed him. But listen, there is worse, more sob stories in Gaza than my brother. I recognize that. But this is our pain, and we're dealing with this every day.
I think you named something that I mentioned earlier, and I think about, I feel like every single day, and it's the back to the dehumanization. I think for those people who say, oh, those are crisis actors, as they call them here, they're not real. I think that is how they justify to themselves standing on the side of history that they're standing on. It's so atrocious. It's so disgusting. If they acknowledged that that was real, then they're the monsters. And they are the monsters as far as I'm concerned, because, like you said, this is your family, and there's thousands and thousands of people all across this country who can point to those pictures and those videos and say that is my family, or my friend or my colleague, not some stranger. And it's such a habit in this country. I do a lot of gun violence prevention work too, and just by chance, I work with a family, one of the families I work with, who their son was killed in the Parkland shooting in Florida, just by chance. And it was just the fifth year since the shooting in El Paso. Just by chance, that family I work with from Parkland, we were in El Paso when that shooting happened. We were there. Imagine. And so, because we were there, a lot of the media wanted to talk to these parents, because they've now, I mean, they've been in proximity to two massive, terrible shootings. And that was exactly what we saw online. These parents aren't real. They didn't really lose their son. They're crisis actors. They're this and that. And so, of course, we're going to do it to Palestinian people. You know what? We do it to our own people here in this country. And it's so upsetting. And if anybody here is going to take one thing away from it, I hope it is that we challenge those norms, what's become normal in this country, of true just the most disgusting types of dehumanization. So I appreciate you so much for sharing, well, for so many reasons, but for sharing that story. I'm going to just ask you about the upcoming presidential election. And of course, UNRWA is a 501c3, FMEP is nonpartisan 501c3. So this is really like we're talking about things in a more overarching way. But I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about what people in Gaza want to hear from presidential candidates and what you think our community here in the US, Palestinians in the US, want to hear and know from the candidates.
Yeah, for a starter, I mean, we need a ceasefire, right? Any candidate who's going to push that through is somebody that's going to be a winner among our community. I'm speaking in my personal and very personal capacity. As you know, Vice President Harris was the only person called me when my family was being genocided. You know, she didn't have to do that. She showed character. It's not easy to talk about Palestine, you know, so I just really value that. And she's written a note of condolences. Now, at the time, you know, we could express rage and say it's an American bomb that killed my family. I get that. And I get the frustration of our community about voting a third way. This is a free country. People do whatever they want to do. I see any argument right now, but I tell you, it meant a lot for us that we hear from the vice president to connect with us on the human level. She talked to my Maryam. It was her birthday, our daughter. So, and remember, that's before the killing of my brother. And after that, her team reached out and they've sent a note. So, in the personal level, we're there. As you understand, we're Palestinian Americans. We have to be honest. We're not getting nearly anything we want. Before, we used to talk about political rights. Now we're talking, hey, please, can you let us live? And somehow that's
Right.
controversial. You
Yeah.
know, this is before October 7th, our team at UNRWA USA, my colleague Jason, was trying to put a digital convention for Gaza for digital jobs that was supposed to be in February. So we're no longer talking about computer chips and just want some potato chips. You know, this is what the basic is. We were talking about the cloud with UNRWA, and now we're talking about the aid on the ground. So this is a lot
Yeah.
of that is causes a trouble. Obviously, a lot of our community received the news yesterday, the ticket. I don't know. I'm not in the political space. My heart wants this thing to end in Gaza because this is not right. And any person who speaks about it and does something about it is okay in my book. And again, this is just in my personal capacity, somebody who has a family lost. I have Palestinian comrades who like choosing a different candidate. That's their story. I'm not going to tell people how to vote, but I really hope that we'll have I'm on record speaking about this. It would have been really hard for me to vote for President Biden again. And I've said that on record just because in my world,
Yeah.
I feel he is partially responsible for what's happening in Gaza. Now, on my UNRWA USA, hat, any US administration that supports the Palestine cause and funds the UN agency and the rebuilding of Gaza once the ceasefire happens is welcome. It could be anyone from space. We don't endorse candidates, our donors do. And I just want to
Yeah.
remind politicians that, UNRWA USA, we went from 10,000 donors to 120,000 donors. These are real Americans who care about this issue, who live in districts that are red, purple, and blue. And you remember, it's one thing to go to a rally, it's free. It's another to put your money where your mouth is. And people care
Absolutely.
about this. And for our community, I pray that we're going to rally around a candidate, but also be invested in the political process and not limit our engagement into WhatsApp and just venting. No, just go vote. It's simple. Really go
Yeah.
vote. Anyway, I'll stop talking about this now. I hope I drove the point home.
No, absolutely. And of course, understanding you speaking in your personal capacity. And again, FMEP is nonpartisan, but in my personal capacity, I agree with everything that you said. And I think it's really, really important that, we think about this both from a very humane way and a strategic perspective. We're not, it's not gonna, the just peace and the change and the stopping of the bombs is not gonna happen by accident. We have to force it. So I really
I
think I
mean,
can
I
talk to you
appreciate
all day. Yeah.
I appreciate
Yeah.
your involvement in this. You know, you're
Yeah.
having a lot of those conversations that, you know, a lot of our community are obsessed with the humanitarian support, which is critical and important. But also we need to allocate some of our funds to the political
Yeah.
games because that's what it
Yeah.
is. You know,
Yeah.
I was in Congress when the prime minister was speaking. These
Yeah.
politicians who were clapping, they're getting money left or right, you know,
Yep.
and we're not,
Absolutely.
this country is good to us. We have some money too. We could allocate it. You know, this is a free
Yeah.
country. We practice, we vote, we support candidates with money. And I just want
Absolutely.
to tell people to get engaged. The other call
Yeah.
to action I have is careful where you spend your money. You know, look at those companies and see who's doing what, who's not speaking truth, and not just in Palestine, in Ukraine too. Any company that's harming the civilians
Yeah.
should not be getting your money. And really do
Yeah.
your research. And that's one way you can help. You know, yes, do dua, do prayer, do thoughts. It's all welcome, but attach it
Yeah.
to some sort of action.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. What a perfect place to end. Thank you so much, Annie, for joining me today and for just spending some time. Like I said, I could talk to you all day. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of Occupied Thoughts. And please make sure to check out FMEP website. It's www.fmep.org for resources related to this podcast and so much other content related to Palestine and Israel. And please make sure you're subscribed to this podcast to stay up to date. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Spotify. And you can also watch the video version of our podcast, including this one, on YouTube. And with that, I'm Rania Batrice signing off until next time.